and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 147. And the title of this episode is Warning: The War and Economic Collapse Cannot Be Stopped. And we know that war is on its way. Syria, Russia, Iran, China are all making preparations. The United States is moving the assets, military assets, into their strategic positions, getting ready for something to happen. And there are reports out there that say something could be happening as early as the end of this week, and we will get into why I believe that most likely we will see something by the end of this week. But let's first get into the economic collapse news, and we're going to go out to Greece. And we know for a fact that no matter what happens and what they do in Greece, their debt is piling up. And we know that the people in Greece are unemployed. More people are unemployed every day there, and they cannot make ends meet. They do not have enough revenue to sustain the debt that the Greek people are taking on, and their system is completely collapsing. And there is a report now saying that the total amount of Greek government debt outstanding has grown so much over the last 15 months that it has retraced over 60% of the haircut-based reduction and has jumped a stunning 14.5% in that period. And right now, their current debt data corresponds to about 180% of GDP. And this goes on to say that the Greek debt stands at 321 billion euros, which is considerably higher than the pre-crisis levels of 2009. So what do they have? Higher unemployment, which is getting close to 30%. So much debt that it can't be sustained, and not enough revenue to maintain this type of debt. So what are we looking at here? We are looking at a collapse of Greece, and this will eventually happen. And we're going to see this happen in every country. This is not just one country. We are going to see this happen across the Eurozone. We're going to see it happen in the UK. We're going to see this happen in America. This is not only there. These are just the first countries that are getting hit the hardest right now, and eventually this will spread. This is very similar to the Great Depression. A lot of the European countries were hit first, and they went into a recession way before the wave hit America. And Spain right now is looking, they're saying that the recession is going to be a lot worse than they thought. And what's happening right now is they're having a 55% unemployment between the age of 16 and 24. And the Spanish government has been saying that they do not think in the rest of the year 2013 and into 2014 that things are going to get better. They are predicting that things are going to get worse there, and we know it's going to get worse because we're seeing this all across Europe, where the unemployment across the Eurozone is at 12%. A lot of the countries are around 25. I believe Spain is around 25. And we are going to see unemployment start to shoot up. And we have to remember one thing that's very important here, is that the European government officials, the American government officials have been campaigning and letting everyone know how well the economies are doing and that they are improving and things are getting better, and don't worry, look over there, not at the economy. And this is what they've been doing for the last couple of months through the summer. And we know for a fact when government officials start telling you that things are getting better, always think the opposite, because they're always trying to cover up what's really happening. And you know when you find out what's really happening? You find out when it's too late and the economy starts crumbling around you. Like we saw it in 2008, the president was out there, uh, the Fed was out there telling us that everything was fine. The subprime is contained. They're not forecasting a recession. Even when President Obama and uh, Senator McCain were running, McCain had no clue what the real economy was like. At least back then, Obama did, and he pointed it out. But most of the government officials will always tell you the opposite of what's really happening, especially when there's a collapse happening. And we see this throughout history. It's not just back in 2008. If you go back in history and you look at all the quotes that all these government officials say, it's always the wrong thing and always the opposite happens. And we're seeing this right now. I mean, you're seeing in the mainstream media right now, they're telling us that the economic confidence um, is uh, is going up, and people are more confident in August. So July it was down. Now it's August, and let's see what we have in August. We have the approaching debt ceiling. We have the housing market starting to to, to decline. We have war in Syria, but in August, consumer confidence is up. All the retail stores are letting us know that sales are bad, but they're trying to tell us that the people are telling us, and from their results, that the confidence is high. But if you look at the Gallup Economic Confidence Index, what they're saying, it's stuck in a negative territory. So again, we're having a disconnect between what the mainstream media is saying and what other sources are saying. And this goes on to say that Americans' confidence in the economy is heading further into negative territory after almost reaching the net positive range in late May and early June. And 42% of Americans said the economy is getting better, and now 54% said it's getting worse. So things are starting to switch. People are starting to realize, and it has to be because retail sales are plummeting. Stores are closing. The main chains are saying that people are only spending on certain items. Unemployment, if you don't use the manipulated calculations from the government, is going up. Underemployment is going up. People who are not in the labor force are now, the mainstream media is reporting that these numbers might not be correct because they're starting to realize, and this was in the New York Times, that they are not counting the people who no longer can find work, and those people who just stopped because they just got frustrated with the whole thing. And they're noticing between the ages of 24 to like 35 or something is the range of people that are out of work. And if you go prior to 1994 and you use the unemployment calculation back then, it shows you that the unemployment is really around 23%. And if you look at this, we are the same, America I'm talking about, as other European countries. Spain, 25%, Cyprus, 30%, Greece, around 30%, and you're looking at Portugal, Italy in the high 20s. So if you don't use the manipulated calculations, we are right where they are. But then again, the United States has the ability to print money to prop up the stock market, and they want everyone to look at the stock market. But as we can see, the stock market is starting to fall, and it's not going up like it used to. It's starting to, up one day, down the next day, especially with everything going on, and we see gold is starting to move up again. And, the sign of the times is we know that J.C. Penney is not doing well, and William Ackman, hedge fund manager who has a huge stake in JCPenney, started to dump his shares, and we see another person, Mitchell Clipper from Barnes and Noble, and he sold about 2/3 of his shares. So these people are realizing that retail is going down the tubes. These stores are not going to recover, and they're starting to sell their shares before it's too late. Even in Japan, McDonald's is having a rough time, and they are seeing that their profits have dropped by 40% and sales are off by 11.4%. And we also see that the Case-Shiller report was out for the housing market, and if you look at the mainstream media, it's showing that in the months of June and July, housing has increased, and you have to remember this is old data already. I mean, back then, the Fed was pumping up the housing market. They were giving no down payment loans. Hedge funds were purchasing huge amounts of real estate, especially in the rental market, for cash. But now what are we seeing? We are seeing mortgage applications plunge. We are seeing the traffic to new builders building homes decline, and D.R. Horton says the traffic is slowing down. We are seeing mortgage rates rise, which are pushing more and more Americans out of the housing market. We are starting to see, because of the mortgage applications plunge, we're starting to see the sales come in and start to catch up to what is happening, and we're seeing sales starting to drop. And we know that Obama was out campaigning, letting everyone know that the housing market was completely getting better and things were improving. And just from that, we know that that's completely false. And also, we're coming out of the summer months and we're heading into the winter months, and you know what happens to housing at this point. But what's interesting here is that Bob Shiller goes on to say here that housing is a market with momentum, he notes, and right now the momentum is up. And he also says, because of all this, none of this is real. The housing market has gotten very speculative, and it's a bubble waiting to pop. And this is what we saw in 2007, 2006, 2007, all the way up to 2008, where the housing market started really to take off. People were flipping homes all over the place, down in places like California, Florida, New York, and all the other states. People were buying, 1, 2, 3, 4 different housing or condo units. They were buying them before they were even built. And we're seeing the same type of thing happen now, where people are buying homes, flipping them, but not really living in them. And we have to also remember this. The Fed is still purchasing $40 to $45 billion worth of toxic real estate every single month, because the banks have a ton of foreclosures on their books. And we also have to remember there are a ton of short sales on the bank's books. And all these people who lost their homes because of foreclosures or short sales and lost their job, they do not have the credit to go out and purchase homes again. So who are all these people buying homes? Well, people could say, well, it's the new people, the younger people that are coming up in the market. But we have to remember now, the college graduates from, I think it's from 18 to 27 or 25, the employment rate for those people around 50%. Most of those people can't even find work in their fields, so they're taking jobs that are not in their fields and getting paid less. So who's buying all these homes? And there's a report out there saying most of the homes are in cash. So you're trying to tell me the unemployed, underemployed, the college student who can't find work, still living with their parents, everyone has all this cash to buy homes? Or does it make more sense that the hedge funds, investors, people from out of this country are buying these types of homes? Now, something interesting, I guess Merkel and Asmussen um, had a little argument, but what's interesting about this is that Asmussen says Germany's third quarter will be somewhat weaker than second quarter. And out of this whole thing, it shows that something is not right, and they were arguing back and forth about different points. And I took out of this that if the economy in Europe is doing so much better, why would someone mention that the third quarter would be weaker than the second quarter? Wouldn't you think that would be improving as time goes on if they're telling us that everything is okay? Okay. Now, Obama administration sees mid-October as the deadline that the country will default. They will run out of money, and they only have I think it was like 50 billion or so on hand before they hit October, and then they will hit the debt limit. But the debt limit was frozen, so I don't know. They're kind of hiding everything, and we also have to remember a couple of things that are happening during this fall. We have this debt limit, which they're going to make a big, big argument about, and they're going to say, oh, the Republicans this, the Democrats this. It doesn't matter. So far, 14 times they have raised the debt ceiling. They will do it again. They cannot stop it. They need to continually to increase the debt ceiling because they cannot service the debt. So they need to borrow more money to service the debt because the revenue from taxpayers is not enough to cover the interest. So no matter what they say and what arguments they make, they will raise the debt ceiling again. And again, what is coming up now, and what are they trying to do? They are trying to start a war with Syria. We've already heard a report from General Dempsey that this will cost $1 billion per month. So can we really afford to add this on to our $17 trillion of debt right now? I mean, they're talking about sequester, how Obama's out there, oh, the sequester this, sequester that. He's giving $500 million to, the Syrian paid mercenaries to pay for salaries down there. They're supplying Egypt with millions and billions of dollars over there. They're giving billions to Saudi Arabia. And now they have no problem spending $1 billion a month to do what? To make Syria and Iran use the dollar as the reserve currency, remove the governments and replace them with puppet governments so they can set up a private Western central bank so the central bankers can make more money. So they are going to send Americans to die so those people can make more money. It makes no sense, and everyone should be opposed to this war because this has nothing to do with the American people. And in my earlier reports, I've been saying that the U.S. government and the Fed do not want to be blamed for this economic collapse that's going to happen very, very soon. And right now, the Fed still insists, back in 2008, 2009, that the credit bubbles, the real estate bubble, had nothing to do with the Fed, and the Fed is saying the stock market, the Treasury, if anything happens, they are not to blame because it has nothing to do with QE printing or anything like this. So already they're ready to shift the blame someplace else. And where will they shift this blame? They're going to shift this blame onto another country and blame it on them that this economic collapse is happening. Okay, let's move on here. Now, we know that the gun bill, the UN Arms Treaty, and CISPA are all pending in the Senate because they're waiting for a certain event to happen. So the government, no matter what, they need to get the weapons away from the American people because they know when the economic collapse comes, they're already ramping up the race wars. They tried this with the Trayvon Martin case. They know that the DHS employee who bought weapons for the DHS is talking about race wars, and they're trying to, gin this propaganda up so everyone thinks there's going to be race wars. And they're trying to cover all this up. And they don't want the American people to have weapons because, again, the government is in power, and their worst fear is for the American people to make a movement and remove them from power. So what they need to do, and they've been trying this for years now, to get the guns away from Americans. And they've tried so many different tactics. They tried, with all the shootings in Sandy Hook. They tried that. Dianne Feinstein came out with a bill, and that bill got shot down during the Boston bombing. We now have them trying to tax firearms by 20% and ammunition by 50%. They are trying to introduce the UN Arms Treaty. We know President Obama has set up all the executive orders to support all of these bills, so we know for a fact they're going to push all these through with some type of an event, and we can expect to see this very, very soon. We are going to see in a shooting event, which we've already seen, another school shooting in Georgia. We've seen other shootings around this time period, and they will push this agenda forward to get these bills passed. And what's happening is they are making the case, and you see a lot of documents out there about terrorists, and we have to remember the DHS was created to stop the terrorists, and they have the terrorist alert system, but we have to remember the terrorists that you think they're going to stop are not foreign terrorists. The terrorists they're going to stop are domestic terrorists. It's you, the people who live in America. You are the terrorist, and that's what they're here for. And there was from the economic, let me just say here. Yeah, I believe this is from the Economic Collapse blog, that there are 72 types of Americans that are considered potential terrorists. And I'm just going to read a couple of them, not all 72. If you like to see it, I do have it on the site. It's on this report. Just click on the link. It'll bring you right to it. And, some of these people that they consider potential terrorists are those that talk about individual liberties, those that are advocate for state rights, those that want to make a world a better place, returning veterans, anyone that suddenly acquires weapons, anyone that establishes a website blog to display extremist views, those that have a negative view of the United Nations, those that are opposed to the collection of federal income taxes, and those that support former presidential candidates Ron Paul, Chuck Baldwin, and Bob Barr. And these are some of the people that they consider terrorists. Now, looking forward over here to cyber attacks, we are seeing very strange things happen in the internet world. I reported this yesterday, but even stranger things are starting to happen. Now, we know that the NASDAQ had this computer glitch that just so happened to happen. The Eurex system also had a glitch. The TASE system in Israel had some type of glitch. But now we are seeing things like Netflix, Vine, Instagram. They are all reporting problems getting through to the services for several hours, and this was on Sunday. We're also seeing that Amazon and Airbnb, which I mentioned yesterday, Google had a problem. Amazon, the main site Amazon, had a problem. We're seeing very strange glitches happening. And again, I talked about this in episode 138, and it seems to be following this path. and I do believe they are setting something up and they are testing things out, and this is why we're seeing hiccups in the system. Because you have to remember, these companies have redundant systems. Things just don't go down. I worked in technology for more than 25 years now, and I worked on Wall Street. And let me tell you, when we had the trading systems going, we had failover systems. Not just one, not just two. We had load balancing and among many, many different services. So if one thing went down, even the network connections coming in with the routers, these were all load balance and redundant systems. So it's very, very difficult to take out the system unless you bomb the place. But then again, we also then had failover systems in other parts of the country, so downtime is very minimal. But if it's in the same place, I mean, it would have to be a fire or an explosion of some sort for these systems to go down. So for me to see this happening is quite impossible at this point to believe that these are just glitches, especially with NASDAQ saying it was an update, because I know when I worked on the trading systems, you just don't update the main systems without testing it 2, 3, 4 times on your test systems, on your backup systems, before you even roll it out to your main systems so you know what's going to occur. Especially today, where you can make clones of the same systems and just do the same test. So it's very hard to believe that, this billion-dollar system, it was just an update or some other type of problem like this. But we see today another glitch in the system, where the streaming market data system experiencing issues. So we're seeing this all around many, many different systems. Now we have to remember that the FBI put out a private sector advisory, and I mentioned this before, that on September 11th, they want all companies to be aware and ready for some type of cyber attack on the financial institutions. Now, the SEC decided to meet with the heads of the exchanges over this NASDAQ glitch on the 12th. Now, if this is so important and so urgent and cost, billions of dollars because of what happened, why are they waiting so long, and especially after September 11th? Why are they waiting for September 12th to do this? And I thought this was very telling that they are waiting. I mean, right now we're at August 27th. We know Labor Day is coming, but they're waiting until after the 11th of September, especially when we have this warning from the FBI and we have other things going on. But that is very interesting that they would wait so long to do this. Now, Janet Napolitano, on her way out of Department of Homeland Security, decided to give a few words, and one of her main statement, I should say, was that the U.S. will face a cyber attack in the future that will cause major disruption in the economy. Our country will at some point face a major cyber event that will have a serious effect on our lives, our economy, and everyday functioning of our society. Now, this is what she's saying as she's leaving her office to go in to become a dean of a college. And she was also hoping that the next person in will do more to protect the U.S. from these cyber attacks. So she's basically telling us that something's coming, and she knows it. And I've said this in the past, and for those people who are new, who have never heard this or just started listening from this report, you can go backwards and listen to what I said. The cyber attack has been set up at this point to be the doomsday false flag event. We could, and most likely, see a cyber attack come this fall, but it will not be the doomsday one. They will do it if they cannot get this war started in Syria, and I'll discuss that in a minute. If they can't get certain things in line. For instance, they can't get the UN Arms Treaty passed, gun bill passed, CISPA passed. They can't get the war started. They will use, if all else fails, this cyber attack as a doomsday false flag. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, number one, they will have a country, well, they'll say it's a country, hit the power grid. And Janet Napolitano, Panetta, the U.S. government officials have gone over this and over this, that hitting the power grid, and there were many, many reports I did on this about the power grid, that the power grid will go out. It is a virtual 9/11. It's a cyber Pearl Harbor. These are their words that they're using. But number one, they will hit the power grid and knock out the power in many, many cities. Step two, the president will have to declare martial law, because as time goes on, there will be rioting. They will push the race riots. They will push people rioting in the street, and people will get scared and afraid, and they will, eventually see after 3-4 days the power's not coming on. They will start to get desperate. They will go, to the supermarket, start raiding the shelves. They will start stocking up on gasoline. They will stock up on water, and they'll get any supply that they possibly can, because most Americans, and I'll say this in every country, they are building this up for, because this is not just going to be in America. Most people do not keep any type of prepping, food, water, toiletries, medicine, weapons, batteries, lights, gas, anything like this. They don't keep in their homes. So what happens is, after 4 days, people get very, very desperate. They'll even start going from house to house and breaking in to find things to support and feed their families. And again, these aren't people that normally would do this, but people do these things when they become desperate. I'll give you an example. Where I live, there are schools, and the school is broken into, and people who do not have work become desperate because they have to feed their family. They broke into the school. They stole laptops. But they left a note. We're sorry we had to do this. We needed the money. We need to feed our family. And they apologize for what they were doing. People do things when they are desperate. They don't mean to, but you go into survival mode, and your instinct is to do whatever you have to survive. And you're going to see this. And, some people will be hostile if they break into your homes, like we saw during Hurricane Sandy up north, where there was a lot of looting and a lot of houses being broken into because the power was out. And we will see a lot of this happen. We also have to remember that since there'll be martial law, DHS will be deployed, FEMA camps will be opened at this point. They will be coming for those people who are on the list, and at first they'll make it like, go to the FEMA camps. We have generators there. This will help you. We have food, lighting, bathrooms. Please, go there. And they're going to round up the people at this point. And we have to understand that at this point, they will be moving money out of the banks so they can declare bank holidays and shut the banks down. And eventually, when the power comes on, they will say this was done by the Syrian Electronic Army, Al-Qassam, whatever they're called, or China, whatever country they're using at this time. I mean, right now we see it's Syria, and they will blame it on the other country, that they hit the financial institution, they hit the power grid, and they're the ones who did this to America. The blame will be off of the government, and we will be going to war with these other countries, and that's how World War III will be started during the doomsday scenario. But right now, they are trying to get the war started using the weapons of mass destruction, which are the chemical weapons. Now, moving forward into the war, we know that They are trying their hardest. This is not the first time that they're saying that the Syrian government has used chemical weapons, but we know for a fact that it is the rebels. There is proof. There was a plan back in 2013 saying that the Obama administration approved this type of tactic where they'll use chemical weapons and blame it on the Syrian government, and this way we can get to war. Over the year or so, they've tried this. They tried the humanitarian reasons. They've tried to bribe Putin to step aside so U.S. can go in there. We know the U.S. is training and has trained paid mercenaries. They're already standing by in Syria. We already know that all the military assets have been shipped over to this region, and we know they are ready for some type of war. And Russia right now is evacuating Russians from Syria at this point. So that is very telling that we see this happening. And there was a new poll out again, Syria intervention even less popular than Congress. A new Reuters poll has finally found something that Americans like even less than Congress, and that is U.S. military intervention in Syria. Only 9% of respondents said that the Obama administration should intervene militarily in Syria. So right now, Obama does not have the support of Congress or the people of America. We do not believe that we should even be in Syria. Americans do not want to get involved. They don't want to have their children sent over there so they can get killed. And this is not going well for the president, and that's why John Kerry was out there giving the speech saying, you know, this is a terrible thing, we have to act. But again, even if, let's say it's all true what they're saying, they have not attacked the UK, Spain, France, United States. So this has nothing to do with any of these countries. I mean, we didn't go into any other country that was having an uprising or anything like this. Only Syria and Iran is where everything is pinpointed. And you should realize the only reason is because they're not trading their oil in the U.S. dollar. But for this buildup of this war, the U.S. has the USS Harry S. Truman, which is an aircraft carrier already there. The USS Nimitz, which is already there. The GHW Bush is underway in the Atlantic, but destination unknown. The George Washington is underway in the Pacific, destination unknown. And those two are aircraft carriers. Amphibious warships, there's the USS Kearsarge, which is in the vicinity of Syria right now with the two other aircraft carriers. The Wasp is underway, which is an amphibious warship, and destination is unknown. And the Bonhomme Richard is an amphibious warship, which is underway, and destination is unknown. But we have 4 destroyers that we know that are right outside of Syria, and that is the USS Barry, the USS Rampage, the USS Gravely, and the USS Mahan, all ready with cruise missiles to be deployed and to go to war with Syria. Now, Obama cannot just say, well, he could if he really wanted to, but it's against the Constitution, against the War Power Act. But Obama unlikely to seek congressional approval for expected Syria strike. Now, under the law, the president does not have the authority just to say, let's go to war. And if we go to the War Powers Act, and I'll read the first part here, and it's broken up into the first, second, third part. Congress and the President will apply to the introduction of the United States Armed Forces into hostilities, and that the President's power as Commander-in-Chief are exercised only pursuant to a declaration of war. Specific statutory authorization from Congress or a national emergency created by an attack upon the United States. Syria has not attacked the United States. The second part requires the President to consult with Congress before introducing U.S. armed forces into hostilities or situations where hostilities are imminent, and to continue such consultations as long as U.S. armed forces remain in such situations. So we're seeing that the president just can't say, oh yeah, let's go to war. But we can see here, from Jay Carney, and he goes on to say, when it comes to Congress, we're consulting with Congress and we'll continue to do that. And he also goes on to say that we might not need Congress's approval for this, but they actually do. And it's also, we can see that this was completely planned. When the UK Parliament is on summer recess, the United States Congress is on summer recess. They don't come back until after Labor Day. And this also goes on to say, this additional article, U.S. attack on Syria would circumvent Constitution and international law. The only way the president, and this goes on to say, that could say, okay, let's go into war, it has to be a claim of national defense or an authorization given by the UN Security Council. And at this point, it doesn't look like the president is going to get authorization from the UN because they're going to have to prove that the Syrian government used the chemical weapons, and then the UN's going to have to say, okay, we approve this, and you go in and invade Syria. Now, there is a report saying that the U.S. could launch missiles this Thursday. And this is coming from a senior U.S. official. And we have to remember that what is happening is September 30th is the end of the fiscal budget for providing the paid mercenaries with weapons and money and things like that, and they would have to go back to Congress and plead their case again. We also have to remember that this weekend is Labor Day. Most Americans will be enjoying the Labor Day weekend. They won't be listening to the news. No one will be paying attention. Congress is on recess. And if they're going to do something, they might do this actually on Friday. I mean, they could do it on Thursday, but Friday late sometime, then they would do some type of an attack without getting approval from anyone. But they are losing steam on this case right here, and they keep trying to prop up the propaganda. And there could be fallout if the president goes ahead with doing this. And let's say that this whole war buildup does fall apart because they don't get UN approval. The president doesn't pull the trigger and waits for Congress, and Congress says, no way. What's going to happen, since the poll numbers are so low and the American people are not interested whatsoever to go to war with Syria, they will bring the false flag home to the U.S., or it could be to the U.K., or one other, maybe the other European nations, but most likely the U.S., because the U.S. has their ships and the military and everything set up for the war in Syria. And we already have one of the representatives of the Department of Homeland Security saying that, these chemical weapons could make their way to America, and Al-Qaeda could use them here in America with the help of the Syrian government. And this would enable the United States to show the American people and Congress that look how bad Syria is. They actually took the step to go ahead and use the chemical weapons on American soil. Now, the other way, the other false flag they could do is, again, this fall, have the Syrian Electronic Army bring down the financial institution, and this would also help them show that Syria just attacked us because from all the government officials, they told us if there is a cyber attack on the United States, it is an act of war, which they made this perfectly clear. So if they attack the financial system and bring it to a screeching halt, this would be an act of war. Plus, this would also cover up the economic collapse. So this war and the economic collapse is cannot be stopped at this point. We are heading down the road. We cannot turn off or veer off. Plans are in motion. Things are set. They will not deviate from what they are doing. So you can be rest assured that all of this will go forward. Now, the time frames might be a little different. They might be a little bit off, but you can be, pretty positive that this is going forward. And again, we might see something in the fall. We might see something in the early winter or late winter, but it will happen. If you have not started to prepare, I would start right now. And we are seeing right now, I'm looking, very interesting, the Syrian Electronic Army takes down the New York Times website. So they are starting the propaganda. This is out of RT, and we can see that it's beginning already. So what I am saying to everyone, if you have not stocked up on food, water, weapons, supplies, gold and silver, do not wait. Do it now. Again, I've said this in my other reports. Worst case scenario, all of us in the alternative media are completely wrong. We're making everything up. There is no war. There is no economic collapse. Then you know what? The supplies that you purchase, they don't go to waste. You can eat your food. You can drink your water. But guess what? If we are right, which everything that we're looking at and everything that we see, we are going to see something. You will be prepared. Listen, everyone, I really appreciate you listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.